Welcome, everybody. Matthew, my name is, and today we're going to be talking about selling technology with stories. So the great Steve Jobs once said that the most powerful person in the world is a storyteller. And we know as humans deep down that stories are what actually define and create a movement. Martin Luther King didn't say, I've got a 3-point plan with different silos and executable work orders. He said, I've got a dream. So it's about delivering these dreams, these plans, these dreams, these stories into the market that actually move people. Because doing nothing is really, really attractive. Well, I've already built it. I'll do nothing. If they, and I've even had customers or potential customers say to me, well, if the customer doesn't get it, then I'm not selling it to them, which is madness. And of course, those businesses languish in obscurity. They have real challenges actually making a significant and genuine positive impact in the world. So, you think about how we're brought up. We're brought up with stories, fables. They're, it's constant. We're constantly being told stories as kids to teach us lessons. And also as adults, we're constantly watching stories. You watch TV, it's a story. My kids and I are watching SAS Australia, which is it takes people through various exercises to see if they're good enough to be fit enough and mentally strong enough to be in the SAS, which if you've read anything about the SAS, a 12-day course is probably nowhere near the level of punishment these guys that defend our countries actually go through. But they constantly cut away to the person talking, and what's that doing? It's building story, because watching people sweat it out with no context is just that. So talking about your technology without any context is just that. It's cold. It's not that interesting. And only other people just like you are going to get it. And even then, people just like you probably think they can build it themselves. So what I want you to think about today is the story that you're telling people. Okay, so Kevin Costner did lie to you. If you build it, they will come. Actually, I was told about 10 minutes ago that that's a bit of the Mandela effect, right? So it's actually, if you build it, he will come. But we'll go with, if you build it, they will come. I think you all understand what I'm talking about here. But this is not business advice from a guru. This is not how to engineer the world's greatest piece of software. This is a guy hallucinating about ghost baseball players. This is not good business advice. But so many of my clients say, oh, well, I've got the best, the fastest, the cheapest, the whatever it might be. And they find themselves in a situation being grumpy that other customers just don't get it. Well, I'm sorry, it's not up to the customer to get. It's up to you to tell the story of how you got here and where you're going with the product. Yes, there will be a recording afterwards. So somebody just asked if there's going to be a recording. Okay, so who's this webinar for? And obviously I only work with software and technology businesses. My whole job is to create a situation where, let me tell you a quick story about myself. So I'm a sales guy, and I started my first tech company when I was 22, and all throughout that time I had the corner desk, not the corner office, the corner desk in the sales room. I was a salesperson, paid a commission just like every other salesperson there. Sure, I owned the business, but I took that out of the final end of year profit, not the ongoing. So I earned commissions. And I always partnered with really great marketing people. Now, my wife was the first marketing person. She did an incredible job putting in adverts. And then the next person was a guy named Steve, guy from Chicago, really successful. We were able to get that cost per acquisition down to about $800 for a $20,000 product. So that's pretty good. That's for advertising costs. Now, the thing is with that, I, as a salesperson and the marketing person, needed to work constantly in sync to be able to create the result. And so how I started this business is I was helping people grow their sales team and the sales IQ, but without marketing, it's like building a really great engine, but no fuel. And the fuel is marketing. And that's why now we've developed Tech Talk, which is the seamless marriage of sales and marketing. Sales and marketing is constantly talked about as one thing, but people often will go, well, I'm going to hire a salesperson. They can go and do emails, and they can write blogs, and they can go door knocking. They can do all these activities that are not necessarily selling. And then, of course, you get marketers, people who have a marketing spin. They would just generate a bunch of leads and just hope people buy. Sorry, you need both disciplines inside the organization to actually really create some accelerated momentum. So if you build it, they will come, or he will come, is not good business advice. Who's the webinar for? So it's for software and technology companies who need to cut through the noise. If you're doing something better, faster, cheaper, that's not good enough. I'm sorry, it's just not. You need to be able to build out a narrative, a story that actually is able to say where we've come from and where we're going. You need to cut through the noise in the marketplace. Everybody else in the space, not everybody, most people out there are telling you about the feeds and speeds and all those types of technical elements. Data sheets. Can I have a data sheet on that? You know, these and people produce data sheets. Great, but the data sheet still needs to have some story in there. You need to generate new leads, because when people go in the marketplace, they're going to maybe do a quick bit of research. They're not going to be able to identify whether. Imagine if you've never bought a car before. Me telling stories again. Imagine if you've never bought a car before and somebody said, I've got something with 4 wheels, steering wheel, 2 doors. Sometimes they've got 4, but basically you sit in a seat, hold a steering wheel, 4 wheels. Okay? That's how most technology is pitched, with just the technical things. It's got an engine too. But what's the difference between, in that context, what's the difference between a Ferrari and a Lada? There isn't any. Until you know what you're talking about, what emotional attachment. You know what? A Lada is probably a better, more reliable car to go down the street to get some milk, but I'd rather drive a Ferrari, because the story it tells about you or me is much different than driving a Lada. Actually, I wonder if I should probably update my reference there. I might be showing my age. That Lada, I wonder how many people actually know what a Lada is. Anyway, it's a Russian vehicle. And must close deals. Selling and closing deals, you need to have stories. You can't just say, here's our menu of products, which would you like to purchase? That's not how the world works. You need to be able to develop and build and deliver great third-party stories. So we'll be talking about the 3 areas of impact. Why storytelling is important. I'm going to make that case pretty well. Storytelling in business. What stories can you tell? What stories can you tell? You know, is it just a customer used it this way? No, there's about 10 different stories you can use. But I'm just going to take you through a couple and then how to start creating your own story. Now, even when I was selling or helping businesses buy enterprise data warehouses, $1 million databases, you know, pretty dry. Can't even go look at it. Can't pick it up. Can't poke at it. Can't identify it. It's a thing that exists on a server. It's usually offsite. It's usually in the cloud somewhere. So we're now selling a cloud database. Hopeless. But I would start every sales conversation talking about how the owners, where they come from, what they found in the marketplace, and where they were going. Told that story, created that heart, that engagement, to have them, the customer, and know that they're just like you. And this probably gave you a bit of insight of where we're going to go with this in this webinar today. Look, a couple of customers things have said to me about what we do here. This is going to ring true for so many people. We're engineers, not marketers. It was fascinating to see your team turn a spec sheet into eye-catching website and collateral that actually says what we do. Because telling me that it runs at X number of megahertz doesn't solve the problem. What it actually does is it just says the speed. That's a cold piece of data. What we can do is we tell them why it matters. Once you tell people why it matters and how it's going to impact them, that's when you start getting some real traction. Phil Jacobs here says it's impressive. Engagement's up 7-fold, and we got a bunch of vertical collateral for the website in a few weeks. Great going. Engagement's up 7-fold. Did their technology get 7 times better? Nope, not even a bit. It's about actually developing better content. And, you know, this person, once again, an engineer, so speaks like an engineer. You know, engagement's up 7-fold, bunch of vertical collateral. But what that is, it's stories, the stories we tell. So why is storytelling so important? Because you know what? Humans have been around. Well, I'm going to take a science route, not a particularly religion one, but humans have been around for about 6 million years. We've been writing stuff down for about 6,000. That's a pretty big gap. How would people prior to writing stuff down? I'm sure they didn't get a spec sheet on where to find the best berries or which saber-toothed tiger to dodge. I'm referencing the Flintstones here. Obviously, I know nothing about history. But, you know, what we're talking about, we're built that way. We're built to share stories. We're built to share ideas. Stories actually stick. in one of my posts this week, I said, when was the last time you shared, around a barbecue, you regaled all your mates with a really great spec sheet or an infographic? No one ever did that. These are marketers' ways of trying to distill massively complex things into a single page. But that is that's way down the funnel. If you're developing an infographic if you're developing a spec sheet or a data sheet for an early piece of the sales conversation, you're in trouble. You need to build stories. And when you're sitting around the campfire, when you're actually in that conversation, you need to be able to create a situation where it's shareable, where it's viral, it's being able to be passed along. And what I want you to do is, one of the things I'd like to challenge you to think about is, what would be the barbecue conversation? Nick will remember me saying this. Actually, I do have some advice for a startup. I'll actually get to that in just a moment. Yes, absolutely. AFA, I think it is. The print's really, really small. So guys, as I said, I do get on a roll, but please do put questions or comments in there. I respond to them pretty quickly. A bit of a bowerbird that way. I get, shiny thing. But I usually come back to the topic. So with storytelling, I want you to think about the barbecue conversation. When would the situation occur where one person says to the other, you know what, mate? You need to go talk to Nick. He solved that problem for us. What's that conversation look like? If you can actually articulate that story, sit around with your other stakeholders, friends, whomever is interested in your business, and build an imaginary script, an imaginary story about the situation that would be occurring. What would that person be complaining about? What type of conversation's occurring? You build that story for yourself, and immediately you start understanding your customer way better than feeds, speeds, tech specs. So please do think about that. Think about what's the conversation that occurs? What's the story that's being said? What somebody goes, hey, you need to talk to Nick. You need to talk to, Barry. So please do that. The storytelling is important because we're wired to think about stories. Think about the most important books in the world, the Torah, the Quran, and the Bible. You've got these incredibly powerful, important books that have been shared for thousands of years. They're all stories. They're parables, they're ways of living. And whether you're religious or not, and I'm not particularly, but whether you're religious or not, you've got to understand and realize the impact of those stories. And this is how things are created, through story. And if you're in your technology business creating better stories, you're going to sell more. Because really, at the end of the day, people don't buy the best product. People don't buy the best products. They buy the products they understand. And the way they can understand is by hearing what you've got to say, reading your information, watching your video, distilling that, putting it through their filters, and discussing it with the next person along. Every sale is like a relay race. The first person that picks it up is very rarely the person that actually signs the check at the end of the day or raises the purchase order or puts it through procurement. The person that actually picks it up is the one that's having the problem, but they've got to be able to tell the story to the next one internally. They might have to do that in only a couple of minutes. So you can coach people through how to tell that story and pass it on. You can ask in your sales conversation, so who are you going to talk to next? I've got to talk to, might go, well, I've got to talk to the CEO or the CFO or the head of IT. Well, people who are heads of IT typically love our product because we've solved this, and this problem. And let me tell you a quick story about how that went. Boom, you're away, and that person can internalize that. You're helping them sell that up the chain. So, hopefully that helps. Yeah, absolutely. It usually is crickets if they're not in your vertical, but we don't need to sell to everybody. We don't want to sell to everybody. We need to sell to people who actually understand what we do. Who have the problem that we solve. And if you need to, and so that is a really important. I don't want to buy Jira. I don't care about Jira, but a lot of you do. And Atlassian is a multi-billion-dollar company because they sell to a person that uses Jira. So only sell to people that actually need to have the problem that you solve. And the way that you do that is you need to really beautifully articulate the problem that you solve. That's the important bit. So what's the story? Before the sale, why you started the business. I remember when talking to a customer about Nick's business, and in conversation with Nick, and I said, why did you create the business? And from there, I built a story, I built a narrative. And from there, I said, he's had enough of it. He saw this happening. People are getting tired of being screwed over by Shopify, and he recognizes there's a real value in distributing this particular type of software. I'm not going to go and selling you his product. It's amazing. If you want to know about it, let me know if you're in e-commerce. So why you started the business? Why did you start the business? That's important. That's interesting. Tell that story. Build that story. Why did you start the business? If you started the business just for money, well, then there's probably a chance your business, you probably got some challenges there, and you need to think about why you actually do things in the world anyway, but that's a whole other issue. But why you started the business, every single one of you there will have a reason you started the business. You're probably tired of what's currently going on, and you took it upon yourself. You had ownership and accountability and responsibility for everything in your life, and you said, hey, I'm going to go solve this. Successful client stories. So when a person talks about, how have people dealt with this in the past? What are they doing? How does it work? Tell a story. Don't just say, oh, you click the left button, or you do this, you install that. Too dry. You can say, well, a client had exactly the same issue. They were in a situation similar to you. They sold pot plants, not books. And in that, they had a big catalog just like you. What they did is they did this, 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 and this, and this. And then the result of that is A, B, and C. Does that make sense? Boom, you've just told a story. You didn't just say click the button. You said you've created a third-party story. You've created greater engagement. You put the customer in the mindset of them owning and using your application or your solution, and then they get it. And the future. Tell the future to your customers. Where do you want to go? People want to be part of something good. People, I have a dream. People want to be part of something that's bigger than themselves. So if you say, well, we're going to do this, we're looking to achieve this. And as we achieve these things, the great thing is, as an early purchaser, you'll be brought along. You'll be able to stand on the shoulders of those giants as we go through as well. It's only going to get better. Your experience is only going to get more effective. That's powerful. And then, of course, you can take that same story and tell it internally. You can tell stories internally about how your business, where you see your business going, what you want in your business. Constantly communicate that story. Then the people in your business are going to be more engaged in the process and want to do more. Once again, people want to be on a winning side. What's your story? So after the sale, so a customer might come along with user story. So you can tell people how to get the most out of your business. Now, this is really important. Do not fire every bullet or shoot every arrow before the sale. I call it sell today, educate tomorrow. If they need a machine that goes bing, but you can play the entire symphony, sell them the thing that goes bing. Sell them that because they've got a problem, and solve that problem. If you start talking about the entire symphony, then they've gone from solving this one thing to all of these other issues, and now they've got to think about all these other things. That's way too painful. Sell them and solve this one thing, and then say, hey, by the way, we can actually conduct a symphony here for you. They're going to feel better about the situation. They've made a smart decision, solving their problem, dealing with that, and then growing from there. How people overcame challenges. Somebody calls into customer service. You can say, well, yeah, you can click this button, but also it doesn't hurt to have really the best and most successful customer service agents I've ever seen work. And I've been inside many, I've seen many businesses do this, really successful. I've seen those people actually tell third-party stories and solve clients' problems better, create better engagement, better love for the business than just clicking the button. Oh, you got to click the button and do this and do that. Tell people how they solved it and the value that they got. What this does is continues to create goodwill, and people want to refer you because the sale doesn't end at the sale. The sale ends, well, the sale never ends. The opportunities never end. I've got customers here who are messaging me saying very nice things, which I appreciate. And I won't read it just in a moment, but they are saying these nice things simply because I build stories and build context, and those stories stick with people. If I said, oh, you've got to create content, it's too cold. And of course, client spotlights. Nothing is more exciting for a client than being asked to do a testimonial video. One of my clients, we went out to a jet engine maintenance. They do stuff for the military. I said, oh, can I go see the workshop? And the guy almost had a heart attack and said, no, we're under, this is military lockdown. This is really serious stuff. National security sort of conversation. But isn't that a good story? But and by the way, did you know that that tanks have jet engines in them? I didn't know that. I thought that was pretty cool. Anyway, but clients love to be asked to tell their story. And the client tells their story, you can weave your success in with your client's success. And if you make client stories front and center of your selling and also after the sale, the client's going to be more engaged, because this is exactly what happened with a client. I was interviewing a client on behalf of another, interviewing a client's client. It's a bit sort of third level. But what I did there is what impact? And they step into the character of somebody who's an advocate for the business and said incredibly powerful things. So a surveyor company said about my client Abtract that they wouldn't be in the situation they are as one of Australia's largest surveyors and quantity surveyors without Abtract, without their accounting system and time management system. Powerful, man. It's a powerful story. Talk to your customers, and video is an incredibly powerful way. And we're actually doing a lot of video at the moment. So if you are interested in talking to us about that, that's video tells an amazing story. I can even send out some versions of that if you like. So please do that. Tell your client story. So what do these guys got to do with story? Formula One drivers, a whole bunch of super rich dudes, driving around a track. Why would story matter for these guys? What's interesting, though, is my 13-year-old son got up at 3 a.m. a couple of weekends ago to watch the race. Why did he do that? Well, let me just zoom out of this photo. I took this photo, I zoomed in. Let me just zoom out. Big egos, power struggles, stunning betrayals, how Netflix's Drive to Survive turned Americans into F1 fans. So you could have the best cars, best drivers, most financially funded teams, most airtime. But what made the difference in the last 2 years to Formula One is a TV show. And the TV show is not about, I've watched entire seasons of Drive to Survive. I couldn't tell you what the engine capacity of the car is. I don't know what the drag coefficient is. I'm surprised you even have the words for that. Tires, hard or soft, I don't know. But what's interesting is, so when look at the highlight of it. When Formula One Drive to Survive launched on Netflix in March 2018, it was seemed doomed, especially as the show had no access to Mercedes and Ferrari. So anybody who watches Formula One would think, well, if you don't have access to the two main teams, then you're out. You're obviously going to doom to failure. But strangely, Americans didn't care much about the main story. Instead, we swooned over Sauber's Charles Leclerc and other heartthrob drivers. We felt for Claire Williams, the sport's only female team principal, the Williams team, right? And we salivated over boss-level beef between Red Bull's Christian Horner and Renault's Cyril. I can't even say that. I won't even try. I'll embarrass myself. I'm notoriously bad at pronouncing people's names on the fly. I've got a story about that too. I won't go into it. But this thing on Netflix that tells a story about B-class drivers. I know that, if you look at this Japanese guy, I know his name. I know his name is Yuki. I know that he complains about doing exercise. I actually felt excitement for him when he got sixth place because they needed the points. That was what their goal was. Their whole team's goal was to get into sixth place so they could actually get some points on the board. Because manufacturers, I know these things now. I've watched Formula One in the past. I really didn't care for it. It's just a whole bunch of cars going, yeah, not interesting. But now I know the characters. I know these people. I know where they come from. I'm engaged in that story. So what does this mean? Formula One's first race of 2022 season was ESPN's most viewed since 1995. I think it's got to be the single most important impact for Formula One in North America, said Zach Brown, Chief Executive of McLaren Racing. The Chief Executive of McLaren says that a TV show about B players was the most important thing to happen to Formula One. It's story. It's all about story. And so if you think that your technology in your business is about your feeds and speeds, your displacement, your tires, please have another think about how you can tell the story of your business. Hopefully I've made the point. So where do I start? So I've got a couple of people there saying, look, that's all great, but where do I start? What do I do? How do I think about this? I've built a cool thing. I want people to buy it, right? And so if you think about the framework of a TED Talk, because every TED Talk takes the same framework. Everyone, go watch a couple. They're all the same. Let me just have a sip. Every single TED Talk is the same. Where I've come from, the problems I experienced, and the results that where those options fell short, process I went through, obstacles and challenges along the way, and how hard it was, and now how I've come out the end. Every TED Talk, 20 minutes. But you know what? That is one of the most successful ways that people, most successful business models that occurred recently. And what's interesting is you could actually stream them live, but people pay hundreds of dollars to be in the audience. Because what do they get to do? They get to tell the story that they were there. So here we go. Back to worksheets. I know you guys love my worksheets. Let's build your story. Have your client understand your why and understand you why. You why. Goodness, you can tell that my spell check leaves a lot to be desired, but you get the point. Right. Let's list them out. Industry problems you saw. What were they? All data and no direction. What were the challenges? What were the industry problems that you saw that existed out there that motivated you to do something? Because remember, doing nothing is easy. The inertia is exactly that. You can it takes a lot to take an object or into motion. So what was the problem you saw? Discuss that, articulate that, sit around with your business colleagues and talk about the problems you saw, where you've come from, your job, your previous job before you quit that job and started this business. How they are solved now. We use spreadsheets. We use extracting programs. We use this, we use that. People are taking photos. How are they solved now? How they fell short. Write this out. Each one of the problem you saw, how they solved their problem, how they fell short. Technology, service, interoperability, those types, whatever it might be. How do they fall short? The process you went through. What's your hero's journey? What's your if you think about the template of hero's journey is Star Wars episode 4, where the hero is. We're introduced to the hero having a nice time, then he meets a mentor and goes through some stuff and then comes out the other end Jedi. Well, same thing. Tell the story. What was the problems? What's the problem in the market? How are they solved? Here's the problem with the empire. The process you went through, your training, when you saw Yoda, and the roadblocks along the way. And of course, your solution, your iTech whiz bang. I don't even know if that's a real thing, but I just typed it in there. Write that down for every one of your products, every one of your ideas, even write that down about your business. So the chap that asked about startups, do this, tell this story. This is a perfect template for a startup, because a startup, you might not necessarily have 50 customers out there, but you can engage people with your story, engage people that, yeah, I'm also tired of that problem. So if you want to talk more about that, there's an invitation. I'm going to invite about half a dozen people to have a talk with me next week about these things. If you want to grab half an hour with me, please do. There's no charge. I want to make sure that we can help as many people as possible through this. All right. So I can also, if you ask me, I can send you this template as well. You can probably write it down yourself, to be honest. Take a screenshot if you want. But this stuff here really is going to help you build your story. Now, here's something that, actually, I'll talk about it later, but I want you to think about it. I was listening to a book by Ryan Holiday called Growth Marketing or Growth Hacking. And one of the things he talks about in there is how really successful technology businesses, before they even build a new feature, will make the engineers and the marketing team get together and have a conversation and build a press release and a user story about that new feature. And in doing that, it really puts the flames to the feet of the technology person who just wants to build a new cool thing. But what if, is it actually genuinely going to help the customer? How's the press release going to look when you say we've solved this massive problem? Well, we've added this feature in. Once again, story, do it through story. Understand the problem that exists. Solve that, pump it up, make it interesting. Imagine your customer in your mind. Just making you look at the time. Yep. Plenty of time. So please do that. Think about your new features, how they are solved, and then put it together a press release. and have somebody who doesn't care about your business read the press release. If they go, meh, then maybe the feature's not that exciting. Maybe you're excited about it, maybe it's not. Right. Take your reader on a journey. Have a look at your blogs, have a look at your white papers, have a look at the content you're putting out there in the marketplace. If it doesn't have a beginning, middle, and end, if it doesn't actually talk about a problem, how you solve the problem and what the results are, then what are you even doing? So I want you to think about that. Putting together a spec sheet is fine, but it actually doesn't really move people to action. Every piece of content you develop is a story. Here's your job. Talk to your clients. Call them up. Get a list of 3 to 5 of them. Find out how they use your solution. How does it fit into their business? Has it helped them go home earlier to their wife and kids? Does it help them? Are they now able to coach soccer on the weekend because they no longer have to do payroll on Saturday? Maybe. Have you helped them? Have they been able to sell more candles online? Have they been able to sell more alcohol boxes, or have they been able to get more coffee subscriptions? And what does that mean? So what? To sell more? Who cares? But selling more means that I can now do this. I can now take on new markets. So what? Well, now I can actually achieve that, and I can fund my my local charity, whatever it might be. Once you're able to draw the line between what you do and the results you create for your customers, you talk about those results, you highlight those results. That's when you're going to get massive market attraction. We were thinking about virality. Virality has the K coefficient. K is for virality, is for how the K score. If it's got a +1, every one person talks about it to another one person, that's good. But as soon as you get over that 1, you got a viral hit on your hands. Even if it's 1.1 people talk about for every one you bring on, even that, it's going to create a snowball effect, and very, very soon you'll have something that's almost that you need to start controlling. You need to start thinking about how many new customers you can bring on board to make sure you've got a great system, you've got a great experience for all of them, because you don't want to have happen. What you don't want to have happen, you bring on 50 people and your capacity is 30. You don't have a crummy experience for 20. You're actually going to create a crummy experience for all 50 because you're no longer able to deliver the value to that 30. So talk to them about how they use your solution. How does it fit into their business? How does it fit into their life? Action steps. As I said, list 3 to 5 clients and book a call ASAP before you go home today. Think about who those 3 to 5 clients might be. Generate a short list of questions. What were you thinking before you bought? What was a problem that you had? You can just cast your mind back before you engage with us. How did the problem show up for you? What were you doing? How is it affecting you personally? And so what process did you go through to find us, to use us, to purchase from us? And then what's been the results since? How's it worked out for you? Are you happy? And just that conversation, even if they're a little like 50% happy, just because you ask that question, they're going to be way more engaged. They're going to go home and go, hey, darling, that company I've been sort of complaining about, a bit ambivalent about, they called me and gave a crap. I'm going to give them some better, and that's the sort of stuff that generates real results. Ask. Ask stands for ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find, and knock and the door will be opened unto you. So just ask. If you don't ask, you don't get. If you don't ask, you don't get. If you don't ask those 3 to 5 clients, you'll never get them. You'll never have that person to talk to. Simple as that. All right. Just a moment. High production values here. Right, let's carry on. So, where else can you get stories from? Draw from your own life. This is my blog. A couple of years ago, I went I drove this little rickshaw on the left-hand side over the Himalayan mountains with a mate of mine. So why wouldn't I use that story in a blog, in a series of blogs? Every time I talk to somebody from somewhere from India, because I've been to India a couple of times, I can immediately create some type of connection there by saying, oh, well, I've been to India a couple of times. I've been here and there and there. And last time I was there, I drove a rickshaw, and that's a silly story. It's a fun thing to talk about. And immediately I've developed some type of relationship with them because because they go, well, this person has some understanding of me. Okay, draw from your own life, even if you haven't done anything like that. Draw from your own life in the sense that you might have, when you were working at that mine site and this thing happened, or when you were working for the biggest technology provider. I'm seeing somebody in my list here of people who the biggest technology provider in Australia, and these are the problems that occurred, and I saw this, and I just couldn't handle it anymore. Talk about that. People care about the journey. Think about some of the most important or most influential people in the world right now. Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary Vaynerchuk. He's all about telling the story of the journey. Tell the journey. The results are the results. I wouldn't even know which one of what customers he's got, but I know he's running a business doing about $600 million a year in marketing. Tell your story, and that's what he does too. Tell your client stories. So throughout COVID, a couple of my clients, I wanted to help them. We wanted to help them be promoted. So I called them and said, hey, what are you doing anything in particular? Yes, I am. Cool. Let me write a story about it. I didn't write the story. My team did. Let me write the story and then put that up there and get it out there. Did they like us? Yes. Did we get more business because we did that for free? Absolutely. Was it different while we're trying to provide some type of positivity in the marketplace? We sure were. Tell your client stories. Promote your clients. If you can promote your clients, you'll be way better off. So here's an example of a set of stories that you can use. How are we going for time? Still okay? Couple more minutes. So example. This is, remember the funnel, unaware, I understand the problem, I'm seeking solutions, I'm comparing solutions, and I'm deciding. This is the sort of process most people go through. And the burning question, you've mapped this out. You've been to my webinars before. If not, screenshot this and steal it, please do. Or just message me and I'll email it to you. I don't really care. This is because I don't get paid for this stuff as a free webinar. I get paid to implement stuff. I get paid to tell you stories that stick with you, so you can remember them. So what do you have? You've got an infographic, sure, but your blog posts are the story element of this. Each one of these stages has a story. The video has a story. Your ebook has a story. Your data sheet, maybe not so much, but certainly your use case has a story. A use case and a case study are two different things, just quickly. Use case is something when you can't mention names. Maybe you've done work for large government departments or large companies that don't want to have their names mentioned. So it's a use case. This is how our software is being used, our application. A case study is, here's my client and here's how they used it. Slightly different. Feature comparison, that's a bit dry, but a proposal, you can still tell story in your proposal. In your proposal, you can have the journey inside your proposal. The best proposals I've seen tell the story. And of course, an ROI calculator. Well, there's a narrow group of people that actually get a story out of that. They're usually just justifying it. Okay. Every sales conversation is an opportunity for a story. If any of you have had a conversation with me, you'll walk away from that going, what was that guy even selling? But I remember the story about India, and I remember the story about that. And that was really weird. And he drove this rickshaw across the world. He's got a bloody model of it on his desk. People remember stuff. And what does that mean? That at least I'm moving out of obscurity. Same with you. Your biggest challenge is obscurity. You're languishing in obscurity. And if more people knew about what you did, you'd be better off, right? So just make sure you make some type of impact in these people's minds. So I tell lots of stories. You can tell from the 40 minutes we've been on the call here that I've gone off on all these different directions, and you tell that it's not scripted, but I've got a framework. So I like scripts, but within a framework of doing that. Every sales conversation, opportunity for story. So examples of sales stories. Why you do what you do. Why do you do it? And if it's just for money, come up with a different reason for why you do what you do. I've just got somebody else is typing things in here. Thank you, Nick. Actually, I'll read Nick's thing he wrote over in just a moment. Actually, I'll read it out now while we're here. So Nick says, I'm not one to flatter, but those 6 sessions with Matthew were more valuable and more effective than any course or 2 years of business school. Matthew has directly/indirectly resulted in multi-million-dollar turnover in 2 years. Oh, thank you. That's great. Thank you. I'm going to put that up on my page. I'm going to copy and paste that. Thank you. I spoke to Nick a couple of years ago, and I haven't continually bashed him. I haven't continually sold him new things. But what I did do is I've been able to implant ideas and stories into his mind, and hopefully, and because he's a super bright guy, helps helps the whole process if you're really bright. If you can actually take those ideas and turn them into how you operate, and then spread them back out into the marketplace, it's way more powerful, right? Why you do what you do? Third-party stories of people that had the same issue. If somebody says, "Oh, but what about this?" You don't just say, "Click the button." I think I've already mentioned this in my customer service section, but also talk about a pre-sale. "Oh yeah, but I've got this situation." Don't just say, "Yeah, we can solve that situation." You know what, John? I had a client in exactly the same situation as you. They were running a manufacturing business. They were selling widgets, and those widgets were blue. And what they did is they recognized that by doing this was causing real problems. So similar problems to what you've got. What they did is they went, you tell the story about how you solve the problem for the customer. They can feel that you've actually aligned it and you haven't done this hard sell. Hard sell, that's out, Wolf of Wall Street. That was a moment in time. You can bash people into buying from you, no doubt about it. But the type of people you're going to bash into buying from you are going to come back very, very quickly, write reviews, and say a whole bunch of stuff about you that you can't control because the internet now exists. All right, 1 second. Customer success. Talk about your customer success, and if you can back that up with a case study, even better. And what I love, how I present to almost every person that I talk to, I ask a bunch of questions and I understand where they're coming from, and they say, "Well, would you like me to tell you a little bit about what we do?" They go, "Yes." So, well, people buy from me when? The people buy from me when they need to grow their business. They've got a good product market fit. They want to achieve A, B, and C, which might align with what they've been telling me over the last 10, 15 minutes of the sales conversation. People buy from me when is like a story. It's like a third-party story. I'm talking about my customers and when they buy from me. I'm not saying I help businesses sell more to the right people, which I do. I say people buy from me when they've got a great product market fit and they recognize the value of leveraging that to create more sales to the right people. It's just a different positioning. It feels like a story. Okay, so So the key takeaway is going to wrap up. I've got a couple of questions here, which I'll get to in a second. Use story to define your perfect customer or feature. Tell the story of your perfect customer and tell the story internally. You'll be blown away by the insights. Create 2 characters. Create the character of Fred. He's the CIO of a logistics business, and you sell logistics software. What is Fred's problems? What's keeping Fred awake at night? What's he doing in the morning? Is he's walking in, he's sipping his coffee. Build that character of Fred. What does he want? What's his day look like? Well, how's he being measured? And if you don't know how Fred's measured, he's a CIO of a logistics company, I think I said. Go on to Seek or go on to Trade Me. Find a jobs website. Find CIOs of the logistics company in there. They'll tell you how he's being measured because they're all going to be measured pretty much the same way. There you go. Fred's being measured by these types of KPIs. So how much time do you think Fred would spend on that? How big is his team? You develop that story about Fred and how he then comes across your product. What's he doing? What's he reading? Well, how's he interacting? Where is he hanging out? Is he online? Is he on LinkedIn? I'm using he, but it could be a she, doesn't matter, obviously. So you'll be blown away by those insights of what that person is once you humanize that person. So, so how do you get appointment with customers when you're not at all known? Perfect. Now, I don't know if we've ever met, so thank you for that question, but I don't know if we've ever met. But there's a real value in actually creating appointments and creating value to your target customer. I help customers, I help software and technology businesses sell more to the right people. So what do? I put content out there in the marketplace that actually helps software and technology businesses sell more to the right people. And you need to be able to position that content in a way that actually is not too salesy or slimy. We don't want to do that. I'm not that person. I don't want to be that person. And so you need to be able to connect with people. You need to be able to add value to those people, and you need to make sure that they think that you're talking directly to them. The greatest challenge that I see in the marketplace, in technology, and most people in this group here, I can solve a lot of problems for a lot of different people. But you know what? If you just solved one set of problems for one group of people and solved that really well, you would actually have a business on your hands. And if you narrowed your marketplace, and I know this really hurts, it's quite challenging to do so, but if you narrow yourself down just to one vertical. I was speaking with a client just the other day who worked with probably one of the largest software providers in the world. The next step was directorship, and they didn't want to do that. They didn't want to move to Singapore or Germany. And if you know the software space, you might know what business I'm talking about. So they didn't want to do that. They wanted to stay living in Australia. So they started their own technology business. And because they've got that 20 years experience in one of the world's biggest software companies, they then went and built a software product, which is probably amazing. I haven't seen it, but probably really good. The problem is they can solve problems for most different businesses. My advice to them was to narrow it down, find one vertical that they can solve it for. Once they solve it for 2 or 3 customers, and because the software is not going to be cheap, they solve it for that one person. Then remember, marketing is not a tattoo. You're not going to get a thing across your forehead. Once you've solved problems for people in logistics, you can pick your marketing up and then direct it all towards manufacturing. Then you can pick it up and move it all towards another business sector, renewable energy. It doesn't matter, but you can, as long as you've got the ability to speak very clearly and succinctly about a particular target market. Ask me about DevOps and Kubernetes and HashiCorp products. I know this stuff, which really edge case stuff, and probably some of you don't even know what I'm talking about. This is really narrow things in DevOps world, but I know it because I spend my whole time talking to people who only sell software and technology solutions to large businesses. That's what so I know that. I can speak intelligently about that. So narrow down. So my advice, and look, I'm happy to have a conversation with you at another time to take some time. Hopefully that's helped. But I'm more than happy to book in a time to chat with you. So guys and girls, people often don't buy the best products. They buy the products they understand. I know I said that at the beginning. I was sort of foreshadowing, if you like that, foreshadowing my finish off here. People don't buy the best products. They buy the products they understand. Was Google the best search at the beginning? Probably not. Was Facebook the best way to stalk your ex? Might have been, but probably not. So people buy the products they understand. I want you to focus on the journey, not the tech specs. Focus on the guy named Yuki who's trying to get 6th place in the race. What's that story look like? Why should we care about Yuki? Why should I be emotionally invested in him getting 6th place and getting a couple of points in Bahrain and a Formula One race? But I do, and I did, because the story matters. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for taking the time with me. I know it's a lunchtime and we're pretty much on here. If there's anybody who has any further comments, I'm going to wrap up in just a second. A few little emojis. You can react with emojis. I think this application allows you to do that. So I'll have a good one of those. Although my 13-year-old said that the old people use emojis. So I'm now old, it seems. What's the next steps? Do you need personalized emojis? If you want some help, what I'm offering is let's have a chat. I love adding context. I'll take you through that framework that I talk about. There's a whole bunch of other frameworks I can provide you. Let's build your story together. So one of my team are going to get in touch with you over the next couple of days. We're going to put this recording up on one of my pages. So we can talk one-on-one and we'll go from there. I'm also, just by the way, my next course is going live on the 3rd. I'm looking at my calendar over here, on the 3rd of May. And that course takes you through so my business is about doing it for you. I have a course that I teach is teaching you how to do it. And so if you're in the sort of situation where you want to learn a lot of what I talk about, how to sell more to the right people, build the right content, and how to engage with your market, the course starts on the 3rd of May. But as I said, not a heavy sell here. It's about providing value. Hopefully we've got some value here. If there's anything that if I didn't answer anybody's questions, please email me, matthew@techtalk.com.au, soon to be .au. If I've been sold by the advertising, so I need to get one of those now. All right, thanks everybody. I really appreciate your time. I know it's valuable. And I'll be doing one of these webinars every single month on the last Thursday of every month for the rest of the year. So also book that into your calendars if you're interested in learning more how to sell more to the right people. Thanks very much. Bye for now.